What would you do if the person you invited to humiliate showed up in a helicopter? Vanessa stood frozen, her champagne glass trembling as the rotors sliced through her perfect birthday party. Out stepped her sister, the one she'd pitied, the one she'd expected to arrive poor and embarrassed. But Zara wasn't alone. Behind her was one of the most powerful men in the country, and he just called her the one person he can't do business without. This is the story of a sister who thought she'd won until she realized she'd been losing all along.
Fair African Tales. Subscribe and turn on the bell for new stories.
Vanessa stood in front of her floor-to-ceiling mirror that morning, draped in silk the color of champagne, her fingers gliding over imported fabrics as if they were her birthright. The woman staring back at her had everything: a mansion that could swallow 10 homes, a husband whose family name opened doors she'd once only dreamed of walking through, and a guest list for her upcoming birthday party that read like a registry of the untouchable. But there was something missing, something she couldn't quite name. Perhaps it was the gnawing fear that if she stopped performing, stopped proving, the world would remember where she came from. And that terrified her more than anything. So she did what she always did. She made sure everyone else remembered instead. Vanessa scrolled through her phone, her manicured nails clicking against the screen. Her event coordinator had sent over the final seating chart. Oyinkan, Ada Isay, Chioma, all the right names, all the right faces. She smiled, satisfied, until her thumb hovered over a single name at the bottom of the message thread: Zara, her younger sister. The name alone made her chest tighten, not with warmth, but with something colder, something closer to shame. She hadn't spoken to Zara in months, maybe longer. Their conversations had become transactional, polite, distant. Vanessa told herself it was because they'd grown apart, that life had simply taken them down different roads. But deep down, she knew the truth. She had chosen this distance because looking at Zara reminded her of everything she'd tried to bury: the cramped apartment, the peeling wallpaper, their mother's hands cracked and worn from washing other people's floors. Vanessa had clawed her way out of that life, and she wasn't about to let anyone drag her back, not even her own blood. But here's the thing about people like Vanessa. They don't just want to escape the past, they want to rewrite it, to stand so far above it that no one can see where they started. And sometimes the only way to do that is to make sure someone else stays below. That's when the idea came to her, a wicked little thought that slithered into her mind like smoke. What if she invited Zara to the party, not out of love, not out of obligation, but as a living, breathing reminder to everyone in that room and to herself of how far she'd come? Zara would arrive in her simple clothes, probably by bus or taxi, maybe even on foot if she was trying to save money. People would whisper. They'd offer her pity wrapped in politeness. And Vanessa would play the gracious sister, the one who never forgot her roots, who still extended a hand to those less fortunate, even if that hand was only there to remind them of the gap. She typed the message slowly, carefully, each word a blade dressed as kindness. Zara, I know it's last minute, but I really want you at my birthday party this Saturday. Everyone will be there. It's at the Lakewood estate. I'll send you the address. Please try to make it. It would mean so much to me. She hesitated for only a moment before hitting send. Then she leaned back, exhaled, and smiled. Meanwhile, across the city, in a neighborhood where buildings didn't gleam and names didn't echo in society pages, Zara sat at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold in her hands. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, saw Vanessa's name, and felt her stomach twist. She already knew. She always knew. Vanessa only reached out when she needed something, or when she wanted to prove something. Zara read the message once, then again. The words were warm, but the subtext was ice. She could picture the scene already. The designer dresses, the laughter that would pause just long enough when she walked in, the eyes that would scan her from head to toe, calculating her worth in labels and logos. Zara had stopped playing that game a long time ago. Not because she couldn't, but because she'd learned something Vanessa never had. That true value doesn't announce itself. It simply exists, quiet, steady, unshakable. Zara worked as a logistics coordinator for Zenith Air Charter, a private aviation company that served some of the wealthiest, most powerful people on the continent. Politicians, CEOs, investors who moved markets with a single phone call. Her job was to make sure their flights ran flawlessly, that their schedules were honored, that their trust was never broken. She didn't wear a uniform that screamed importance. She didn't post about her work on social media. She didn't need to, because the people who mattered knew. And that was enough. Her phone rang. It was her boss, Dealey, his voice crackling with urgency. Zara, we've got a situation. Marcus Halford just confirmed his flight for Saturday. Weather's looking rough. He wants you on the ground to oversee everything personally. You know how he is. Zara nodded, already pulling up the flight details on her laptop. Marcus Halford, one of the biggest venture capitalists in West Africa. A man who didn't waste time on incompetence. If he wanted her there, it was because he trusted her. And in her line of work, trust was currency. "Where's he flying to?" she asked. Dealey paused. "Lakewood Estate, some private event. Ring any bells?" Zara's fingers froze over the keyboard. Lakewood Estate, Vanessa's party. Of course, the universe had a sense of humor. She sat back, staring at the screen. Part of her wanted to refuse, to tell Dale to send someone else. But another part of her, the part that had learned to stand tall even when the world tried to make her small, decided differently. She would go, not for Vanessa, but for herself, because she was tired of being invisible to the people who should have seen her most. "I'll be there," she said. Dealer exhaled in relief. "You're a lifesaver, Z, as always." She ended the call and looked at Vanessa's message again. This time she replied, just 2 words, "I'll come." And then she set her phone down and returned to work. Because unlike her sister, Zara didn't need a party to feel like she mattered. She already knew. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. Vanessa's party became the talk of every group chat, every brunch table, every corner of the social circles she'd fought so hard to penetrate. She posted subtle hints online, a photo of champagne flutes being arranged, a close-up of gold-embossed invitations. The responses poured in, heart emojis, fire emojis, comments dripping with envy disguised as excitement. She lived for this, the attention, the validation, the proof that she had arrived. But every time her phone lit up, she checked for one name, Zara. And when that name didn't appear, when Zara didn't react, didn't comment, didn't acknowledge her at all, it gnawed at her. Because deep down, Vanessa knew the truth. The only person she was really trying to impress was the one person who refused to watch. Saturday came. The estate was perfect. Sprawling green lawns, a fountain that could have belonged to a palace, white roses everywhere, the kind of beauty that only money could buy. Guests began arriving around noon. Sleek cars rolled up the gravel driveway like a parade of wealth. Vanessa stood at the entrance, radiant in a custom gown, greeting everyone with kisses and laughter. Her husband's family mingled, her friends complimented, the DJ played, the champagne flowed. And yet, every few minutes, Vanessa found herself scanning the driveway, waiting. 2 hours passed, then 3, still no Zara. Vanessa's smile began to feel heavy. Her friend Chioma leaned in, whispering, "Is your sister still coming?" Vanessa forced a laugh. "Oh, you know how it is. Traffic from the city can be terrible. I'm sure she'll be here soon." But inside, doubt crept in. What if Zara didn't come? What if she'd seen through the whole thing and decided not to play along? What if Vanessa had misjudged her? Then, just as the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting golden light over the estate, someone pointed upward. "What is that?" Vanessa turned. A sound. Low at first, then louder. A rhythmic thumping that sliced through the music and laughter. People stopped talking, heads turned, and then they saw it. A helicopter, sleek, black, descending from the sky like something out of a film. Vanessa's heart dropped into her stomach. The helicopter circled once, twice, before lowering onto the open lawn beside the fountain. The rotors whipped the air, sending napkins flying, making dresses billow. Everyone froze. The door opened. Out stepped a man in a tailored navy suit, tall, confident. Vanessa recognized him immediately. Marcus Halford, one of the most powerful investors in the country, a man whose face appeared in business journals and boardrooms. And then, right behind him, came someone else. Someone Vanessa hadn't expected. Someone who changed everything. Zara. She stepped out of the helicopter in a crisp white blouse and dark trousers, her hair pulled back, a tablet tucked under one arm. She wasn't dressed for a party, she was dressed for work. And yet, she carried herself with a calm authority that made the entire crowd fall silent. Marcus turned to her, his voice carrying over the dying hum of the rotors. "Zara, thank you for handling this personally. I don't trust anyone else with these logistics." She nodded, smiling politely, professional. "It's my job, Mr. Halford. I'll make sure everything is sorted before your next leg." Vanessa stood frozen at the entrance, her mouth slightly open, her mind racing to catch up with what she was seeing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be Zara, her Zara. The sister she'd pitied, the sister she'd invited as a punchline. Marcus noticed the crowd and smiled, ever the diplomat. He approached Vanessa, extending a hand. "You must be the host. Beautiful event. Your sister here is the reason my entire operation runs smoothly. I hope you know how lucky you are to have her in your family." Vanessa shook his hand, but she couldn't feel it. Couldn't hear the words properly. All she could see was Zara, standing there, unbothered, unshaken, seen. And for the first time in years, Vanessa realized something that made her chest ache. She had been so busy looking down at her sister that she'd never thought to look up. So here's the question, the one that changes everything. What happens when the person you underestimated turns out to be the one everyone else respects? You know that moment when everything you thought you knew shatters in a single second. When the ground beneath your carefully constructed world cracks open and you realize you've been standing on nothing but air? That's where Vanessa was. Watching her sister step out of a helicopter like it was the most natural thing in the world. The rotors were still slowing, blades cutting through the afternoon air with a sound that felt like it was slicing through Vanessa's confidence. Marcus Halford, one of the most powerful men in the country, was greeting Zara like an old colleague. No, not just a colleague, like someone he trusted, someone he relied on. And Vanessa. Vanessa was the one who suddenly felt small. The guests had gone quiet. Not the polite quiet of people trying to be respectful, but the stunned quiet of people witnessing something they didn't expect. Someone whispered, "Is that really her sister?" Another voice barely audible, "She came in a helicopter." Vanessa's friend Chioma stood beside her, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. "Vanessa, did you know about this?" Vanessa couldn't answer. Her throat had closed. All she could do was watch as Zara moved with calm efficiency, speaking briefly to the pilot, checking something on her tablet, completely unbothered by the 100 pairs of eyes now fixed on her. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. Zara was supposed to arrive embarrassed, humble, maybe even apologetic. She was supposed to be the punchline. Instead, she was the main event. Marcus Halford turned toward the crowd, his smile easy and confident. "I apologize for the disruption, everyone. Tight schedule, you understand? But I couldn't pass up the chance to stop by such a beautiful gathering." He gestured to Zara. "And I certainly couldn't have made it here without this woman. Zara runs my entire aviation logistics. If a flight goes smoothly, it's because of her. If I'm on time, it's because of her. Frankly, if I'm not stressed, it's because of her." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Genuine laughter. Not the forced kind Vanessa was used to hearing at her events. People were impressed, more than impressed. They were curious. Ada Izai stepped forward, her curiosity winning over decorum. "Zara, is it? What exactly do you do?" Zara looked up from her tablet, her expression polite but measured. "I coordinate private charter flights, scheduling, routing, crew management. I make sure people like Mr. Halford get where they need to be without complications." Ada Izai blinked. "That sounds intense." Zara smiled faintly. "It can be, but I enjoy it." Vanessa finally found her voice. It came out higher than she intended, tight with something she couldn't name. "Zara, I didn't know you worked with helicopters." It was a stupid thing to say. She knew it the moment the words left her mouth. Zara turned to her, and for a brief second, their eyes met. There was no anger in Zara's gaze, no smugness, just a quiet sadness. "You never asked," Zara said simply, and that was it. 4 words, but they landed like a blow. Because Vanessa knew it was true. She had never asked. She had never cared to know. She had decided years ago who Zara was, and she had never bothered to check if that story was still accurate, or if it had ever been accurate at all. Marcus checked his watch. "Zara, what's our status?" She glanced at her tablet. "Weather window is closing in 40 minutes. We should be wheels up in 20 if we want to stay on schedule." He nodded. "Then I'll keep this brief." He turned to Vanessa, shaking her hand again. "Thank you for your hospitality, and happy birthday. You have a remarkable sister." Then he walked toward a group of men Vanessa recognized, business owners, investors, people her husband had spent years trying to impress. Within seconds, Marcus was deep in conversation with them, and they were hanging on his every word. But here's what made Vanessa's stomach twist. Every few moments, one of them would glance over at Zara. Not with pity, not with curiosity, with respect. She had become, in the span of 5 minutes, the most interesting person at the party, and she wasn't even staying. Vanessa moved through the crowd in a daze. People kept stopping her, asking questions. You never mentioned your sister worked in aviation. Does she travel a lot? How did she get into that? Each question was a reminder, a small, sharp reminder that she had hidden Zara, that she had been ashamed of her. And now everyone wanted to know more. Chioma pulled Vanessa aside near the fountain, her voice low. Why didn't you tell us about her? Vanessa's laugh was hollow. I didn't know. Chioma frowned. How do you not know what your own sister does? Vanessa had no answer. What could she say? That she hadn't cared enough to ask. That she'd been too busy measuring Zara against her own life to see Zara's life for what it actually was. The truth was ugly, and Vanessa was starting to see it. Meanwhile, Zara was wrapping up. She spoke briefly with the pilot, confirmed the route, and checked the fuel status. Everything she did was precise, professional. She wasn't performing. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She was just doing her job. And that somehow made it worse. Because Vanessa had spent years performing, years curating her image, crafting her persona, making sure everyone saw her the way she wanted to be seen. And here was Zara, effortlessly earning the kind of respect Vanessa had been chasing her whole life. One of Vanessa's husband's cousins, a man who owned a chain of hotels, approached Zara. Excuse me, Miss Zara, I couldn't help but overhear. Do you handle corporate charters as well? Zara nodded. We do. If you're interested, I can have someone from our sales team reach out. He handed her his card. Please do. I've been looking for a reliable service. She took the card, slipped it into her pocket, and thanked him. Just like that. No fanfare, no grand gesture, just competence, just value. Vanessa watched from a distance, her champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. She felt something she hadn't felt in years. Envy. Not the surface-level envy of wanting someone's dress or car, but deep, bone-aching envy. Because Zara had something Vanessa didn't. Something Vanessa had spent her entire adult life trying to buy, marry into, or fake. Respect that didn't need to be performed. Respect that simply was. And it was killing her. Marcus called out to Zara. We should move. She nodded and began walking toward the helicopter. That's when Vanessa realized Zara was leaving. She had come, done her job, and now she was going. She wasn't staying for cake, wasn't staying for speeches, wasn't staying to bask in the attention. She was just leaving. Something inside Vanessa snapped. Maybe it was panic. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the realization that if Zara left now, Vanessa would never get the chance to rewrite this moment. She hurried after her, heels clicking against the stone path. Zara, wait! Zara stopped, but didn't turn around immediately. When she did, her expression was unreadable. Yes. Vanessa opened her mouth, but the words tangled. What was she supposed to say? Sorry? Congratulations? Why didn't you tell me? Finally, she managed, You're leaving already. Zara glanced at the helicopter. I'm working. This isn't a social visit. Vanessa flinched. I just thought, maybe you'd stay, for a bit. We haven't seen each other in so long. Zara's eyes softened, but only slightly. Whose fault is that? The question hung in the air like smoke. Vanessa wanted to argue, wanted to say it wasn't just her, that Zara could have reached out too. But the words died in her throat because she knew. She knew it was her. She was the one who had pulled away. She was the one who had stopped calling. She was the one who had measured the distance between them and decided it was safer to keep it that way. Zara adjusted the tablet under her arm. I need to go, but Vanessa. She paused, choosing her words carefully. You invited me here to prove something. To yourself or to them, I'm not sure. But whatever you were trying to prove, I hope you got your answer." Then she turned and walked toward the helicopter. Vanessa stood frozen, watching her sister's back, feeling something crack open inside her chest. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was shame. Raw, unfiltered shame. Marcus was already aboard. The pilot was running through pre-flight checks. Zara climbed in, settled into her seat, and put on her headset. The rotors began to spin again, faster this time. The crowd had gathered to watch, phones out, capturing the moment. Vanessa stood at the edge of the lawn, alone in a sea of people, watching the helicopter lift off. It rose smoothly, hovered for a moment, then banked to the side and flew off toward the horizon. And just like that, Zara was gone. The party continued. Music played. People danced. But Vanessa couldn't move. She stood there, staring at the empty sky, replaying everything in her head. The way Marcus had praised Zara. The way people had looked at her. The way Zara had looked at Vanessa. Not with anger, not with bitterness, just with quiet disappointment. And that was worse than anything. Chioma appeared beside her again. "Are you okay?" Vanessa nodded, but it was a lie. She wasn't okay. For the first time in years, she wasn't okay, because she had spent so long building a life that looked perfect from the outside that she'd forgotten to check if it felt perfect on the inside. And now, standing in the middle of her own birthday party, surrounded by people who admired her house, her dress, her status, Vanessa realized something that made her want to scream. None of them really knew her. And the one person who did, the one person who had grown up beside her, who had shared the same tiny apartment, the same struggles, the same mother, Vanessa had pushed her away. She had traded her sister for a performance, and tonight the performance had crumbled. So here's the real question. What do you do when you finally see yourself clearly and you don't like what you find? What do you do when the mirror finally shows you the truth? When the person staring back isn't the hero of the story, but the villain? Vanessa stood on her perfectly manicured lawn, surrounded by her perfectly curated guests, and felt completely hollow. The helicopter was gone. Zara was gone. And all that remained was the echo of 4 simple words. "You never asked." They repeated in Vanessa's mind like a drumbeat she couldn't silence. The party continued around her. Laughter, music, the clinking of glasses. But she heard none of it. She was drowning in a room full of air. Someone touched her arm. Her husband, Daniel. "Are you all right? You've been standing here for 10 minutes. She blinked, pulled back into the moment. "I'm fine." But her voice cracked on the word fine, and Daniel knew better. He'd known her long enough to recognize when she was breaking. "That was your sister, wasn't it? In the helicopter?" Vanessa nodded. Daniel exhaled slowly. "I didn't know she worked in aviation." And there it was again. That phrase, that damning, innocent phrase. Nobody knew, because Vanessa had made sure of it. She had buried Zara under layers of silence and assumptions. And now the truth had arrived in a helicopter, impossible to ignore. "I need a moment," Vanessa whispered. She walked away from the party, away from the noise, toward the far edge of the estate where the gardens gave way to open fields. She sat on a stone bench beneath a jacaranda tree and finally let herself feel it. The weight of her own cruelty. Back at the party, the guests had moved on. Marcus Halford's arrival had become the story of the evening. People were already posting about it. "You'll never believe who just landed at this birthday party." Within an hour, Vanessa's event had gone viral, but not for the reasons she'd wanted. It wasn't her dress. It wasn't her mansion. It wasn't even her. It was Zara. The sister she'd tried to diminish had become the highlight. And the irony wasn't lost on Vanessa. She had orchestrated her own humiliation. Hours passed. The sun set. Guests began to leave, thanking Vanessa with kisses and compliments that felt like static. She smiled. She nodded. She played her part. But inside, she was somewhere else entirely. When the last guest finally left, when the catering staff had packed up and the estate fell quiet, Vanessa sat alone in her living room. Daniel had gone to bed. The house was dark except for a single lamp in the corner. She pulled out her phone and stared at Zara's contact. Her finger hovered over the call button. What would she even say? Sorry? Sorry for what? For years of neglect? For using her as a prop? For being so consumed by her own insecurity that she couldn't see her sister's worth? The apology felt too small for the wound. 3 days passed. Vanessa went through the motions. She posted a thank you message online, carefully curated photos from the party. The comments poured in, but they all mentioned the same thing. Your sister is amazing. Tell us more about Zara. That helicopter entrance was everything. Each comment was a small knife, a reminder that the thing Vanessa had feared most had come true. She had been overshadowed. But here's what she hadn't expected. It didn't feel like losing. It felt like waking up. Because for the first time in years, Vanessa was forced to ask herself a question she'd been avoiding. Who was she without the performance, without the status, without the carefully constructed image? And the answer terrified her. She didn't know. On the 4th day, Vanessa did something she hadn't done in months. She drove across the city to the neighborhood where Zara lived. The buildings were older here, smaller. The streets weren't lined with palm trees and designer boutiques. This was the world Vanessa had escaped, the world she'd promised herself she'd never return to. But as she parked outside Zara's building, she realized something. Zara hadn't escaped this world. She'd simply refused to be ashamed of it. Vanessa climbed the stairs to Zara's apartment, her heart pounding. She knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened. Zara stood there in casual clothes, surprised but not unwelcoming. Vanessa, can I come in? Zara hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small but warm, clean, organized. There were books on the shelves, a laptop on the table, a framed photo of their mother on the wall. Vanessa's eyes lingered on that photo, their mother smiling in her nurse's uniform. The woman who had worked herself to exhaustion so her daughters could have a chance. Vanessa felt her throat tighten. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out broken. Zara didn't respond immediately. She walked to the kitchen, poured 2 glasses of water, and handed one to Vanessa. For what? Vanessa almost laughed. For everything. For not calling. For not asking about your life. For inviting you to that party for all the wrong reasons. Zara sat down across from her. I knew why you invited me. And you came anyway. I came because I was tired of being invisible to you. I thought maybe if I showed up you'd finally see me. Zara's voice was calm, but there was pain beneath it. Pain that Vanessa had caused. Vanessa set down her glass, her hands shaking. I was so afraid of being poor again that I became someone I don't even recognize. I thought if I surrounded myself with the right people, wore the right things, lived in the right places, I'd finally feel like I'd made it. But I haven't. I've just been empty. Zara leaned back, studying her sister. You know what's funny? You spent all these years thinking I was the one who didn't make it, but I was never trying to make it, Vanessa. I was just trying to live, to build something real. You were so busy looking down that you never noticed I was standing on solid ground. The words hit Vanessa like a wave, because Zara was right. She had been so focused on climbing that she'd never stopped to check if she was climbing towards something worth reaching. I don't know how to fix this, Vanessa admitted. Zara sighed. You can't fix it overnight, but you can start by being honest with yourself, with me, with everyone. How do I do that? You stop performing, you stop pretending. You figure out who you actually are beneath all the noise. Vanessa wiped her eyes. What if I don't like who I find? Zara's expression softened. Then you change, but you can't change what you won't acknowledge. They sat in silence for a long moment. Not the uncomfortable silence of strangers, but the heavy silence of two people who had lost each other and were trying to find their way back. Before Vanessa left, she paused at the door. That thing you said at the party. I was never poor. I was just busy building something you couldn't see. Did you mean that? Zara smiled faintly. Every word. I want to see it now, if you'll let me. Zara nodded. When you're ready, I'm here. And for the first time in years, Vanessa believed her. She drove home slowly, the city lights blurring past her window. When she arrived, she didn't go inside immediately. She sat in her car, staring at the mansion that had once made her feel safe. Now it just felt like a cage. She pulled out her phone and began typing. Not a perfectly filtered post, not a curated image, just words, raw, honest, real. I've spent years chasing the wrong things. I thought success was about what people saw, but my sister taught me something this week. Real success is about what you build when no one's watching. I'm sorry, Zara, and I'm ready to learn. She posted it. Then she turned off her phone, walked inside, and for the first time in a long time, Vanessa slept without pretending. So here's the final question, the one that matters most. When was the last time you looked at someone close to you and really saw them? Not who you think they are, not who you need them to be, but who they actually are. Because the people we overlook are often the ones holding the most valuable lessons. Don't let pride blind you. Don't let assumptions define your relationships. And never, ever measure someone's worth by what you can see on the surface. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever underestimated someone and realized too late how wrong you were? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe because we have more powerful stories coming your way. Remember, the people you overlook today might be the ones you need tomorrow. See you in the next story.